We want to get evidence, that's why we're here.
There it is!
Mike to Aggie.
Go ahead, you're breaking up.
We're coming in hot, man. We have activity.
I smell fire. Oh yeah, look at that. They're doing a controlled burn. Oh right, it's right there. This is not a good situation. I gotta get out of here. And when people think about Florida, they think of beaches, birds, and babes. But when I think of Florida, I think of Bigfoots. That's because I had my first encounter here back in October of 2011 up in Torrey State Park in northern Florida in the Panhandle. That's where we were sitting around the campfire at about 4 o'clock in the morning. We were watching a meteor shower, and we hear these knocks coming from different sides of the camp. Now there was nobody else there. So we hear the knocks, and about 15 minutes later, we get rocks about fist size thrown right by where we were sitting in the camp. Well, that was enough for me to spark my interest and see, I want to know what's throwing these rocks. Florida is huge and definitely has the area, the landmass, the area, and the habitat to support an animal like a Sasquatch. There's been reports from northern Florida where I had my encounter. This Stacy Brown Jr. got his thermal imager there. The Bridges, which have had ongoing Bigfoot activity for the past 10 or 15 years at their property, which is right outside of Torrey State Park, where I had my encounter. Then you have down in central Florida, where we are right now, and where we'll be investigating on this trip, you have the Ocala National Forest, you have the Green Swamp, down to Fort Myers, and you have the Myakka River State Park, which has just, which last year there was a video that came out of there of a possibly a Bigfoot walking through this tall marsh-like area. Then you have the Everglades. I've never been down to the Everglades. However, it's millions and millions of acres of absolutely nothing. Perfect habitat for a Bigfoot. Alright, we're doing my little solo hike right now in the citrus tract of the Withlacoochee State Forest. There have been a few sightings out of here. The Withlacoochee State Forest is close to 160,000 acres in central Florida of really nothing of this. As you can see, this is a beautiful, beautiful area. The reports of Bigfoot that come out of Florida generally describe a smaller Bigfoot or a skunk ape. The sizing of the skunk ape can easily be explained by the eco-geographical principle called Bergmann's rule, which says that animals that live in a colder climate need to eat more to sustain themselves throughout the winter, where animals that live in warmer climates are generally smaller because they don't need to gain that fat to thrive during winter. As you can see, it's February right here, and it's about 80 degrees, maybe 78 degrees out right now, and that's pretty much par for the course for central Florida. I'm a strong believer that Bigfoots eat the same things that black bears do, which would mean that their population is about dispersed the same way that black bears' populations are. In Florida, you have a very interesting cluster. There's about 6 different divisions or areas that black bears thrive, where and if you overlay a Bigfoot sightings map they're pretty much in the same exact areas, which is interesting. Now the park that we're going to be staying at for our night investigations, there is supposedly no bear there. However, about once a year, a sighting of a large black bear does come out of this park. That just goes to show that even though this park is pretty well traversed by humans, that there is the potential to hide a large apex predator, such as a bear, which also means that I could have a Bigfoot. We're not far away from an area called Silver Springs, which they say is the gateway to Ocala National Forest. Silver Springs is a little northeast of here. But anyways, back in the 80s, they did testing on monkeys. And because it was, oh boy, look at that. Zoom in, I'm doing my solo day hike now. This is just what this park is, just miles and miles of dirt roads and these hammock trees. Anyways, they did these, in the 80s they were doing testing on monkeys, and because it was so controversial, and I believe the courts ordered them to cease the testing. There were 17 breeding pairs of monkeys that they were working on. Well, what's a place to do when the government says you can't research on animals anymore, but you have all these animals? They let them go. And they let them go in this area right next to Ocala National Forest, which is a huge hotspot for years and years now of Bigfoot activity and sightings. Now, it's my belief that at least a portion of these are misidentifications of these monkeys that have actually been released and now, I'm sure, thrive in areas such as the Withlacoochee State Forest here and Ocala National Forest. They say that the reports that do come out of Florida are of a skunk ape, and it's termed the skunk ape due to their size, which we discussed before, but also because of their smell. Well, for me, that's easy to explain. If you have a creature such as us, oh, I smell fire. Oh yeah, look at that, they're doing a controlled burn. Oh right, it's right there. Is because of, let me look at this fire. You can see the smoke through the trees. I gotta get out of here. I walked about 2 miles away from the vehicle and about 5 miles in from the road. This is not a good situation. Thankfully, I made it out of the woods before the forest fire. However, I didn't see any signs of Bigfoot at all. In fact, I didn't see signs of any animals, which doesn't surprise me. Animals can smell when there's a forest fire, and they know to get out of the area. Now it's time to drive an hour south for our night investigations. Alright, we are all set up at base camp. to this beautiful lake in Starkey Preserve. Alright, so I'm heading out now to set up the trail cameras. Trail camera placement is... Trail cams themselves are very controversial in the Bigfoot field. Some people say that Bigfoots can see the infrared light that is emitted. Me, I have these trail cameras. They're very cheap Walmart brand. However, I still put them up every time I go out for the simple reason of why not. If one, you can capture some really cool footage of other types of animals, and another reason is if the Bigfoot actually can see the trail cameras, then they'll avoid them. So if you have enough of them, I only have 2, then you could potentially direct them in an area that you want them to go, because they would obviously not go towards the camera. You want to put the trail cams... Oh crap! Look at that! Holy... Well, welcome to Florida. Oh, it just went down. Just went down. That was a gator. Small guy. Gotta be careful where I walk. Trail camera placement is really a shot in the dark. However, you want to put them high enough off the ground that they're not going to be disrupted by the movement of any low brush or limbs that you have in front of the camera. However, some people put them upwards of 8 or 9 feet up to get the Bigfoot's head, which is not a terrible idea either. However, if you have a juvenile Sasquatch, you're not going to get it. I think I'm going to put mine... There's a tree over here. You want to put them by any creek beds, any creeks that come in. This pond that we're at now does not have any creeks flowing into it. If there's been any track finds, you want to put them there. And it's also important to get a picture of your control of what the camera is actually taking a picture of. So what I'll do is, I always have mine set to video. Video is the way to go, just because you want to make sure, picture, just like the Jacob's picture, you don't know what it is. If that was set to video, we would have a very good idea what it was. And if it was a Bigfoot and not a bear, it could be the best trail camera footage, one of the only trail camera footages of a Bigfoot ever created, ever filmed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put mine on this tree here. You see Aggie fishing in the background. Put mine here and face it off down that way. It's right next to the lake, so if anything wants to come in for a drink. I don't see any game trails. Game trails are another great place to put trail cameras, as Bigfoots are obviously going to travel in the path of least resistance, as would any animal, and any animal does in the woods. So I'm going to go ahead and set up this one, take a couple control shots with it, and move on to the next one. Alright, I'm going to hang up my second trail camera now. The thing with trail cameras is some people bait their camera. This actually looks like a good spot. You can see there's potential for something to hide down. And there's a lake right there, and there's right through the woods is our camp. So I think this is a really good spot. Some people bait their trail cams, which I have done before. Thing with baiting is if you're gonna bait your trail cameras, make sure they're not close to your tent or your camping area, because that will attract other animals that you don't want to come give you a wake-up call in the middle of the night. And I use things that are natural to the area. Down here, be citrus fruit, oranges, things of that nature. Up in where I'm from in New Jersey, apples, grapes, anything that is not going to be something a Bigfoot wouldn't eat. Because I think if they see something that they wouldn't eat, they wouldn't go anywhere near it. Other people bait their trail cameras with like kind of cool stuff, like flashy stuff or whatever, like, or gifting. People gift. We'll get into gifting in another episode. It's also an idea, but just keep in mind that the chances that a gift would be taken with a trail camera put out, probably not that great. Also, gifting is, again, a long-term situation. But anyways, this looks like a good spot. I'm gonna put it in here. I kind of wanted to go in a little bit further, but I think if a Bigfoot was to come check out where we're camping, this is gonna be where he's gonna not be able to be seen by camp if he ducks down, have a clear visual of all of us, and you can make a quick escape through the palmetto scrub back that way. So I think this is going to be really good. I think I'm going to put it on that tree right there and aim it right in this direction. I do see a little game trail that kind of does flow through there as well. So I'm going to get that set up and we'll check back in a little bit. Another thing while I'm thinking about trail cameras is you want to, I didn't do it to the other one because it's so out in the open, but if you have one like this, I just took some Spanish moss or whatever that's natural occurring in the area. Just want to try to, this as much as you can. It doesn't affect the functioning of the camera, but you just want to try to camouflage it just a little bit. Again, if they can see infrared, it's not going to do too much, but why not? It kind of looks natural, a little more natural than something sitting hanging on a tree. Another thing is around the back of the trail camera. Some people have ones that wrap around like I do. You want to make sure that you tie these up, tie the extra up if you have any extra. That way it's not flapping around the wind, because if they are very observant, I believe. So if they have anything that flaps them all around in the wind, then they're going to see that and obviously avoid the area. So, I get some firewood. It's a good piece. Got to check for snakes around it. There are a plethora of venomous snakes in Florida, and that'll be my next couple hours gathering firewood. Modified from what I normally do. Normally when we get right out on location, I try to get it going as soon as I step out of the car, before I get out of the car, just so I'm sure I don't miss anything. And I made a little loop in the rope with a food bag. It's a little low, there's no bear here, and I put the voice recorder up and hung it up from the food bag. A couple things about the voice recorders. You want to set it to conference mode if your voice recorder has one. And you see this light here. If there's any way you can cover that or turn that off, that's definitely beneficial. However, since this one's so close to camp and we have a fire going, there's no point in covering it up. Another thing is when you throughout the night, you want to do a timestamp when you turn your voice recorder on. So right now it's 18:37 hours on Friday the 5th. And when I initially turn it on, what I'll do is I'll say the weather, the date, and all that good stuff. In the background, over to our east, we have the Suncoast Parkway. So there's going to be some background noise from the food or from the highway, but nothing we can do about that. Boy, look at that sunset. That's gorgeous.
Do you believe in Bigfoot?
Kind of on the fence. I think I'm on more possibility there is than not. Well, when you hear things and see things that you can't explain, it makes you wonder.
What first got you into bigfooting?
So we did this trip to Korea where you had tickets. You had tickets to go on this paid expedition with some Bigfoot people. And so we went, and it was really cool. Everybody was really nice. They had all the fun gear. They had thermals and night vision, and you know, they were doing all the stuff you see people do on TV. And so it was cool. And so even just walking around the woods at night, which is normally really dangerous, but with night vision and thermals, you can see. Like that one night where I was like, oh, there's a deer, and then it moved, and I was like, oh, that's a bear. Whoops. And yeah, so all that was really cool. And then the one night, it was like 3 in the morning. Everybody in camp was sleeping except for you and I, because we're not smart. And all of a sudden we hear wood knocks in a direction. And I got really excited because, you know, obviously I've seen that on TV and stuff like that. And you got really scared. And then there were wood knocks in another direction as a response. And then more. And you wanted to sleep in the car. And I started throwing stuff in the woods. And then
Well, before that, didn't rocks get thrown at us?
That's right. Yeah, something was thrown at us first. So I threw stuff back.
And I think that could pretty much rule out that it was a person.
Yeah.
Because if it was somebody throwing stuff at us, it wouldn't continue to throw stuff once you retaliated with it.
Well, the distance. You know, if you remember, there was a valley right there.
Right.
I mean, unless Nolan Ryan was down there, I just don't see how somebody could throw from across the valley. But what do I know? Lots of times we have heard knocks, stuff like that. Howls. I never know what howls are, though. Like, there was a time you and I were doing a day hike in one of the parks, and a big bird, I don't even know what kind of bird it was really big, like, zoomed down upon us, and I swear it growled like a dog. If I had not seen it, I would have swore up and down it was a dog. We go to Colt Creek one night, and there's 4 of us, and real late, somewhere around midnight, you and I decided to go on a night hike. Rather, you bullied me into going on a night hike. And the other 2 stayed in camp. Anyway, it was a no-holds-barred kind of night hike. You were doing howls and wood knocks literally every 5 feet. And I had a very powerful spotlight with me. So every animal within a 10-mile radius knew right where we were. And the interesting thing about that is we get to the corner, and there are these 2 sets of eyes staring at us. And, you know, they were glowing because of the spotlight I had. So I shine a light down, and my first thought is hunters out here in a place where they're not supposed to be hunting,
now,
poaching.
Just back up a second. Were they glowing, or were they reflecting?
Reflecting off my light.
So they weren't glowing when your light was not on it?
No.
Okay.
And, anyway, my first thought was hunters. So we start saying, hey, sorry guys, don't mean to bother you, blah, 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 and nothing. Shine the light back up, see the eyes, and once it turns and looks at the other, it turns back and looks at us, and we drop the light, and we're like, yeah, that was really scary. We're like, are you guys okay? And I remember you were like, hello? Hello? And we didn't hear anything, and we shine the light back up, and they were gone. Now, the thing about that is if you spend any time in the woods, you know that the smallest little raccoon, armadillo, whatever, sounds like a freight train going through the woods. These things just vanished, and that was that. No noise, no nothing. So they could have been some kind of ninjas, I'm not sure. But, anyway, we made a mental note. They were behind this tree, in front of that one.
And then you did the smart thing is before we started running down the trail.
Marked the trail.
You put a rock out in the middle of the
and
trail.
I hit the tree with my machete.
Yep.
Because I had a big gladiator machete guy. Anyway, and then we double timed it back to camp. If you remember, once we got within walkie-talkie range, we called John and said, John, something happened, we're coming in hot. And he's like, alright, I hear you guys on the north side of the camp. And we're like, negative, we're on the south side of the camp. And John came back on and goes, oh, well hurry back then. And so the next day we go out and to investigate the area where we were. We find where I marked the trail. And like you've seen other people do, I stood where we were. You walked out to where the eyes were, because once again we knew they were behind a tree in front of this one to the left of the other one. And you raised your hand up until I told you to stop. Now real quick, about remembering exactly where they were. We all work in like 911 services, EMTs and paramedics, so we get paid to pay attention. That's what we do. We notice details. Anyway, you didn't stop raising your hand until I told you to, and when you did, it was about 7 feet up. So whatever it was, their eyes were 7 feet off the ground.
And we could determine how high it was because of that branch that was hanging on the palmetto tree, right? Remember there was a branch hanging over?
Yeah, but you should, for people who don't know palmetto trees, it's a leaf, not a branch. It's not something animals can sit on. Like, not even like a mouse can sit on that kind of thing. Yeah, and there were no, like, branches from the trees for, like, say, owls or, you know, any kind of big cat or anything like that.
The only thing, if it wasn't a Bigfoot, the only possible thing it could have been was an owl. And I still stand by that to this day.
But are two owls going to sit there and flutter and cover?
That's
because
the...
there was not a branch for the owls to sit on.
That's my, yeah, right, that's my concern about it.
The only thing it could have been would be if by chance two black bears were hanging out together. But that park, I mean, they have black bears there, but black bears usually don't run in pairs.
They don't have the eye shine. If you remember back, the eye shine was two different colors, and bears have one color, as do any species of the same species that has just one solid color.
Well, I hear debate on that though. Anyway,
well, they would have had to been standing on their hind legs.
Right.
Yeah.
Both of them.
And I don't think the black bears of Florida get that big. I could be wrong, but I just don't think they do. Anyway, so I don't know what it was. Either way, if two black bears decided to take off, we would hear them. So I don't know what it was. I guess if I believed, if I was out there looking for ghosts, I'd probably think it was ghosts. If I was out there looking for aliens, I'd probably think it was aliens. So I don't know. That's like the one thing.
We're here in Florida, in the Starkey Wilderness Preserve in western Pasco County, Florida. Well, our first initial motherfucking piece of piece of garbage, son of a bitch. We're here in Florida, in western Pasco County in the Starkey Wilderness Preserve. It's 18,000 acres and can certainly hold the elusive skunk ape. While our first initial investigation didn't go as planned, someone decided that they were going to end their life by suicide here in the park. So yesterday we had plenty of law enforcement activity, helicopters flying overhead, which did not make a good first investigation. However, things have quieted down in the park, and we're ready for our second or final night investigation. However, it's going to rain. This is Florida. And the storm's going to move in about a half hour, so I'm going to bunker down in my tent and get ready for the final investigation tonight. Motherfucker! We're here in Florida, and as you can see, I'm kind of stuck in my tent due to the rain. It's only supposed to rain for about an hour or so, so it's not too big, but I'd like to take this chance and show you guys what I brought on this trip. This is a little modified trip for me. This is a backpacking trip. We hiked about 5 miles into our camping location. But, regardless, here's what I brought. You can see I have all the camping essentials: sleeping bag, sleeping pad, boots, backpack. Here's my survival kit, just general survival stuff. I have a knife. The knife I have 2 knives. I have cotton balls, Vaseline for fire starting. I have a lighter. I have some flint strikers, fire blanket just in case Outside are my pots collecting rainwater. You can't hike in as much water as obviously you need to intake on trips like these. The sole reason I'm able to film at all is this thing. This is a solar charger. Hooks up to your phone if you want to charge your phone, but also hooks up to the GoPro, which I'm filming on right now. Also have a headlamp. Headlamps are very important, especially for night investigations. This one's a fairly decent one. It has the white light, but it also has a red light, which is important because it's a little less invasive when you go out at night. Kind of saves your night vision, and it's a good way of looking for the Sasquatch. Other stuff I have, I have my phone, hat, down jacket, in case it does get a little chilly at night here. Gloves, my food. This is one of the 2 night vision cameras that I have. This one's really cool because it does actually record, so I always bring this out on our night investigations anytime I go out. The only downside to this is that it is set at a 5x zoom, so even though it's awesome quality, you're going to it's always going to be 5x zoom, so that's an issue, especially when you're trying to use it just to navigate at night. So that's that. I have another one that doesn't record. That's a 1x zoom, which is great for just walking around. My still camera, which is I always bring my still camera. So I'm pretty big into photography. I have these are really cool. These are glasses, which you and it actually has a camera inside, which is great. Battery life is decent. It records for about 2 hours. Actually, I guess I can charge it up. It records till the memory card's full. I don't have a big memory card in there. It also comes with these flimsy little plastic actual glass, or well, quote unquote glass, but I don't use them because it does give me a headache every time I use them, so I just took them out. I use them for that. They actually fit over my sunglasses pretty well. I have my water filtration device. I have a Sawyer Mini, which is great for trips like this. Just, yeah, I mean, it's necessary unless you want to boil your water, but it's very hard to get a fire going when it's raining like this, so great thing to have. Have bear mace just in case you have any issues with bear. There's no bear down here, supposedly, except the one that's roaming around this park, but I bring it on all the trips just because the coyotes, there's a ton of coyotes down here, but the real thing you have to worry about in Central Florida, pretty much all over Florida, is the wild pigs. They're nasty. Let's see what else I got. And this last thing I have recording-wise is my actual camera. The only downside to this thing is the battery life isn't good, and I have no problem saying that this is not a normal USB port. They have the USB output, however, you cannot charge it through that. You have to charge it through that. So, unfortunately, it gets one charge and then it's done. Kind of heavy to bring for just one charge, but it is what it is. Also, my trail cameras are out, and here's one of my 2 voice recorders, which I took down just due to the rain. So we'll check back in. I'm going to take a nap, I think, and we'll check back in once the rain dies down, and hopefully it'll peter out before our final night investigation tonight.
Even though we didn't have any activity in Florida, I don't consider it an unsuccessful trip. We now know where the Bigfoots are and aren't during this time of year. They certainly aren't anywhere by us, and if they are, they didn't want to come out and play. For our next investigation here, I know that we need to go about investigating this area with a different tactic. I know there are Bigfoots in Central Florida. It's just about being at the right place and the right time.